It's very easy to make money in the space. It's extremely hard to sustain it. I've seen people make 8 figures and then lose it as if it's nothing. If it just happens to grow and you don't really work that hard for it, you don't appreciate it enough.
Nobody cared about privacy for 5 years in a row, and now suddenly everybody pretends as if it was the most important thing on planet Earth.
You have some sense of it happening, but you only realize it happened when it's too late. When people say in the bear market you go down 90%, right? The first 80% already happens in like a month.
There is a very clear incentive for the US administration to pump money into the system and to address the cost of living crisis. And the entire narrative of financial austerity, it is completely off the table. GM, and welcome to this next iteration of the Odyssey Roundtable. How are you doing, Onur? Last week was quite weird, I would say, in the trenches, wasn't it?
Am I your trench guy? The default trench guy? Doing very well. But you know, my well-being correlates with amount of work I get done. So yeah, if things keep moving and things keep progressing, I'm doing very well. I don't even look at price action or anything. Don't really have time. I'm not really trenching right now, to be honest. It would be unfair to say I'm in the trenches. I've been trenching a lot earlier this year and late last year. But right now, I'm just like focused on building stuff.
Yeah, my well-being is solely correlated to what the numbers are saying in the wallet. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been much less stressful and more enjoyable if you weren't caught up in any DeFi contagion last week. So maybe let's start by giving our audience a small TLDR of that. So basically what happened, I mean, everybody remembers the liquidation cascade on October 10th. And Stream Finance was an up and coming and like pretty popular gray box vault. So you could deposit USD, ETH, BTC, and I think EuroC into Stream. And they reached a TVL of roughly 500 million. And over the last weekend, so roughly 10 days ago, some allegations emerged that they were inflating their TVL and looped up. And it turned out that the actual user deposits were only roughly 160 to 170 million. And they were minting kind of against their own receipt token. So if you deposited USDC, you received XUSD. And they had a partnership with Elixir going, which is another kind of synthetic stablecoin with a DEUSD ticker. And they kind of recursively looped each other to inflate each other's TVL. So Stream Finance ended up being like 90% of the circulating Elixir USD. And that in of itself is kind of degenerate, but I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I mean, it's not comparable to Luna or UST. But then they started lending out capital to a third-party fund manager. And apparently that third-party fund manager, he blew up on October 10th. And then last Monday, I think Monday night, Tuesday morning, it turned out that Stream Finance had a 93 million hole. So now the entire thing is insolvent, and a bunch of other vault curators had exposure to Stream. And even if you were not directly affected, you had a very strong incentive to pull as much liquidity from lending markets as fast as possible. So even though 93 million is not really a big sum of money if you compare it to the average size of notable exploits or compare it to the 2022 collapse of UST, which was 20 billion or even more within a few hours. These are not big numbers, but since it's led to such a contagion and such a delevering, liquidity was really drying up in DeFi, and a lot of the vault curators were panicking, and now everybody's coming out with transparency reports, etc. So yeah, I think it was a pretty big hit for everybody who's doing a lot of yield farm. And yeah, how do you look on the different sectors of the market right now? Do you think that kind of the DeFi stuff is dead, or attention is coming back to memes, or how do you look at it?
So first of all, how much money did you lose?
Roughly 10% of a port again. And I was
That's rough.
already, I was already kind of smiling to myself that October 10th seemed to be one of these few outlier events in crypto that did not directly affect me, because I only had spot exposure at that point in time. So obviously, like, my VV portfolio was down, but nothing was lost in a realized sense. But yeah, I guess I gloated over that a little too early.
Yeah. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And I mean it, because I think it's very easy to make money in the space. It's extremely hard to sustain it. I've seen people make 8 figures and then like lose it as if it's nothing. I don't know why. There's definitely some psychology around like what's the saying? Easy come, easy go. It's like if it just happens to grow and you don't really work that hard for it, you don't appreciate it enough. And in that sense, like I think getting resilient and like creating strategies to sustain money that you're making in crypto is super important. Honestly, like holding, especially Bitcoin, probably outperforms most strategies anyways. But we seem to feel that we have some sort of edge or advantage against the market. And then we deploy for what's peanuts in yield, really? Like, why would you deploy? Like, if you think about it, like, why would you deploy even 10% of your port in something that entails so much risk for what, 10, 12%, which would mean you make your principal back in little less than 10 years? Doesn't make any sense. Like in 10 years, Bitcoin will be who knows where, right? So even though like my port hasn't been doing well since 1010 and beyond, I was never too affected on stable coin farming or yield farming place, just because like if you think about risk, right? There's a couple of different risks. So first is like the price risk of the asset that you hold. If you have stables, that doesn't really exist. But if you have stables, you have the counterparty risk for the stablecoin issuer, let's say Circle or Tether. Some people have stables in a weird thing bridged by a weird bridge provider. Then you have counterparty risk of the issuer, and you have the smart contract risk of the bridge, or you have like the multi-sig risk or honeypot risk, whatever you want to call it. And then you take that stablecoin on that different chain and you put it into some weird ass yield contract. So you have an additional smart contract or program risk that you're exposed to. So this is my thing. Like, I would not want to be exposed to that much smart contract risk. I would be okay, kind of like the comfy and spot meme, being exposed to price risk of holding certain assets, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Pump, or Hype. But yeah, generally, the way I look at DeFi is I look at the underlying primitives. I'm not the typical yield chaser. I know people who did very well, but yeah, personally, I'm really not the yield chaser. I'm more kind of like find good assets, get an entry, and hold them.
I still think that overall DeFi is a thing that is obviously not offering risk-free returns, but of course, if you're chasing 20% on a market neutral asset, let it be a synthetic stablecoin, there are some tail risks. I mean, you have it in traditional finance as well, where you have junk bonds or corporate bonds or private loans in developing countries where you are competing for similar yields. So, I mean, given the overall stuff that you can do on chain and in DeFi, I still think it's a pretty cool sector. But yeah, I mean, you cannot compare the current risk reward ratio to the days with insane upside like you had in 2021 when you had all of these food farms and triple digit APRs. It has definitely become way more competitive. And also, when I talk to some people who are doing yield farming professionally during Token in Singapore, they were all agreeing that it has become insanely more difficult. All of the curators, professionalized participants are now entering the space, and yeah, we are far from the easy times we had 4 years ago. But other than that, what's your current outlook on the market? So last week we made new lows on BTC. We filled the October 10th wick, at least for all the spot listed pairs. I think we also did that on Ethereum. So what's your outlook for the rest of Q4 and maybe also for next year?
It's easy to be bearish right now. I need to learn reading the market instead of trying to predict it. And I think looking at the market, there's more things that point bearish. Like if you look at like the peak signals or like BTC top signals, we hit none of them, right? So according to those kind of traditional measures, we didn't hit the top yet. But I think there's only two possible outcomes. Either this is the beginning of the bear market, and we're in disbelief, and we're gonna go down from here and consolidate for another like 10 months, or December will be like December, maybe January will be another 2 weeks of craziness before we go down. I don't think we will have an extended bull market next year. I don't think Q2 next year is bullish. I don't think the bull market will go for much longer if you still can call this a bull market. So I think either this is kind of the final squeeze before the 2 weeks parabola for random coins. BTC, I think, will do nothing crazy from here. Like, sure, maybe goes to 150, 160 or something. I don't think any more, to be honest. But I think it's also, this is a typical, like, it goes up, down, or sideways, right? But I would kind of like, I would rule out a few options. So I would rule out that we're already deep in the bear market. I think if we're going to the bear market, it's going to go much lower. I would rule out that we're going to have an extended bull market. That's not going to happen. I think like either we peaked, or in the next weeks / 1-2 months, we're going to have some amount of craziness before things start going down again. Yeah. So that's my take. If I were to bet, I would just like, I would say it's very weird that this time we peaked without any signals hitting and without any craziness parabola. I mean, yes, the number of assets exploded, but this is like not a this like I have zero bull market vibes. And I'm exposed to some stuff that went up quite a bit, but it's just like we didn't hit this craziness yet, and either this craziness doesn't exist anymore because we compromise on a lot of the volatility for getting this mainstream and creating ETS. So that's why if I were to like move a magic wand and make a bet, I would say December, January, we're probably going to see some craziness before we go into a deep bear market.
I'm not sure about the whole alt season outlook. I mean, I think it has become quite consensus by now that we will not repeat the exact same playbook as we've seen in the last cycle, where we have a wide scale alt season, and I mean, we discussed all of these factors leading to that at length. There are a few catalysts on the horizon. First of all, the Federal Reserve has stopped quantitative tightening and is moving towards quantitative easing again. There's still likely going to be another rate cut in December, and there's also the possibility of a tariff dividend in 2025 paid out by Trump. So the White House has been talking about that quite a bit, yet the polymarket odds are rather low that this will happen in the remainder of this year. And I think there are some parallels to 2021, but we cannot assume that the outcome will be the exact same. There's still the kind of myth that, you know, you had that magic combination of circumstances in 2020 and 2021 throughout COVID with helicopter money, stimulus, and all of this imaginary printed dollars pumped into the economy, and that we can simply recreate that. I would say that between 2021 and 2025, things have shifted quite significantly, both on the macro landscape, but also regarding the industry perception in broader retail. Like back then, people were genuinely excited about crypto. There still was a tech narrative that could be sold to people in addition to the financial upside and like participating in all of these money games. By now, nobody is really excited about crypto tech anymore. Of all the use cases that crypto enables, we have never moved beyond, okay, it's like just a better type of database at the end of the day. And for most people, there's nothing in crypto that they can interact with in like an entertaining and plus EV manner day by day. If you entered meme coins a year or 18 months ago, you probably got completely wrecked. Most of the charts are down only, and it has devolved into a super short-term thinking, a super extractive game where the vast majority of participants are losing. And on the other hand, you've had alternatives coming up like tech stocks, the entire AI narrative, prediction markets, and sports betting getting more normalized and more accessible also for US users, that there are simply more entertaining instruments and vehicles for people who want to gamble and want to speculate to express that. Because people obviously feel a much stronger connection gambling on their favorite football, basketball, baseball, whatever team than like trying to fool themselves into believing that some meme coin that got launched 2 days ago is like some new sort of Scientology like movement where everybody genuinely believes in. So I think that is a significant difference compared to a few years ago. I also think that there's no macro catalyst that destines us to repeat 2021, just as there is no macro catalyst that is clearly, shoving us down prices and is making a bear market inevitable over the next couple of weeks. There is a very clear incentive for the Republican Party and the US administration to pump money into the system and to address the cost of living crisis because they want to win the midterms as well. And I mean, the entire narrative of financial austerity, it is completely off the table. That was all pre-election talk. Nobody cares about that anymore. I also think that Zoran Mamdani winning in New York City is sort of creating this very binary narrative of the US and the US population having to choose either between the Trump MAGA faction and socialist faction. So both of these political kind of tail ends are now competing with each other to just appease the voter short term. And the best way to appease the voter short term is to just put more money into the economy to create the illusion that everything is going well. Obviously, in the mid to long run, that is going to backfire regardless who's originating this inflation of money supply. But I do think that there's a decent likelihood that it will happen. If that will play out in like a systemic bid for crypto asset is to be seen. I think for Bitcoin, the narrative is still intact, but for all altcoins, and I would even include stuff like Ethereum and Solana in there, it is much harder to have conviction on these things than, let's say, back in summer when you had still a more direct connection between people and TradFi firms building on Ethereum, building on Solana. You had the bid from the DATs versus now where it's like, yeah, on the macro landscape, things are still looking bullish for the debasement trade and for Bitcoin, etc. There's the catch-up trade to gold happening. There's usually a lag between them, but on the altcoin side, I think it's hard to have a clear stance right now.
Yeah, I honestly agree with that, especially on the widespread alt season. I don't think there will be one, but at the same time, you see Dino coins moving, mainly Zcash and some in the privacy realm. But I think Dino coins moving is actually pretty bearish. It's always been the last wick, the last kind of like exit scam of the cycle, so to speak, if I were to play devil's advocate. Yeah, I mean, I just look at the things that happen, right? Like sentiment turns bearish. We didn't get the price action everyone expected. It's already late in the cycle. Dino coins are moving. Um, these are all signals for the bear market coming to an end. So I also think like the Bitcoin all-time high was all right. Like nothing crazy, nothing that people expected. But we had an all-time high for quite some time, and we had all-time high after all-time high for a few days. The reason why we don't see this crazy, like logarithmic scale craziness anymore is there's still people who got in at $10 into Bitcoin. So you can't expect those people to not sell. And yeah, I agree with you. Like I don't even try to predict. That's my main point. Like I don't try to predict it. I'm comfy in spot. I don't necessarily trade back and forth. I think every time to myself, fuck, I should have at least sold 50% here where it's clear that we're going to hit some sort of bear market and then buy back. But I'll never do it.
Speaking of the whole privacy coin narrative and Zcash, I think one catalyst that could be coming up that is both bullish for BTC and like everything that is on the cypherpunk corner of the broader crypto landscape are capital controls moving into Western economies. The Bank of England just limited stablecoin holdings to £20,000 per person. And while this is not capital controls in the most strict sense of, banks trying to prevent people from moving money out of the respective countries, I do think this is a trend that will expand. I think I've seen some news of the EU cracking down on like pseudonymous and anonymous Bitcoin holdings from 2027 going forward. So I think that there is a clear incentive for Western governments to keep their economic illusions of actual growth going forward and to keep these things stable. There are going to be more capital controls, and I do think that could be a bullish vertical for crypto for everybody who is wanting to have some, let's say, unpolitical and geographically agnostic exposure and sovereign control over their assets. So I think that might lead to a further rise in stuff like Zcash, Monero, etc. But on the other hand, especially looking at the Zcash chart, it just looks so overextended. I mean, where is that sudden bid coming from? Nobody cared about privacy for 4 years, 5 years in a row. And now suddenly everybody pretends as if it was the most important thing on planet Earth.
Yeah, but I mean, if you don't, at least for yourself, create the illusion that it is the most important thing, then what are you doing in the first place? Like, right? Like, what are you occupying yourself with if you don't, at some point in your career in this space, think that you can generally make a change for the better? I'm not going to drop the make the world a better place meme, but at the end of the day, I think we all want to contribute something meaningful to the space we are working in. And in the best case scenario, commercially benefit from that since it has merit and it's seen as useful and being used by others. But honestly, I generally agree. I mean, this is why initially I was like, looking at the market is such a zero-sum game. It's like, if it goes well, you're distracted with dopamine for no reason. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to take screenshots, look at numbers, go up and not do anything, I guess. Unless you're smart and you have an exit strategy. But it kind of like distracts you from, I mean, me not anymore, to be honest with you. But like first or second cycle, I was quite distracted by like bull market price action. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, it's whatever. I don't really care. If the price goes down, people get depressed and they're like, fuck, I round tripped. I messed up the cycle. I thought the cycle was going to be different. I lost money. All the memes. So that also doesn't help. If the price goes sideways, you like lose patience. We all have this meme where, oh, like the second I sell, everyone, you're welcome, you should buy because now it's going to go up 10x because I sold. So there's like literally no right thing to do other than having a system, sticking to the system. Remember we spoke about like LLMs trading, which I'm still bullish on because like I'm not good at it. I don't think I will ever be. I don't want to occupy myself looking at charts or screens or anything like that. Like I'd rather try to build something, add value, and build a product that people use, and then kind of make money on that. But long story short, that's why I totally see price action being extremely depressing. I totally see tourists leaving the space. I totally see the pie not growing, the net inflow drying up. I totally see all of that, and I think this is all short-term bearish for the space.
I mean, we are all here to make money at the end of the day. Nobody's just in crypto for the sake of revolutionizing finance, etc., unless you are an OG participant who's well off. But I still think that the idealistic connotations that especially the OG ETH and BTC folks have, it's just not applicable to the vast majority of industry participants, and not even talking about anybody new we want to get onboarded. Like, there needs to be a clear financial incentive for upside, or you have to have a reason to escape capital controls and financial repression from the traditional financial system in order to keep participating in this industry. And I think right now it is hard to convince people that either one of these conditions is true, because the screws are not tight enough on the traditional financial systems, and people will probably not in masses flock over to crypto until they feel it's actually too late. And over the past months and quarters, all the games in crypto that we could have played were pretty negative sum. May it be meme coins. Now we've also seen some OG DeFi protocols being hit, and some of the up and coming ones underperforming or like with gaping holes. So it's a difficult phase of a market right now. I still think that if you are a long-term believer and you kind of derived your bullishness on crypto based on macroeconomic factors throughout the spring and the summer, you rode up the entire tariff April lows recovery, I still don't think that there is reason enough to completely exit, and I still think it makes sense to keep exposure into the market overall, like particularly for BTC. Also, I find it funny that even though the entire hope and desperation in the space has been like one last pump for altcoins for almost 2 years now, by now I'm probably as percentage-wise highly exposed to majors as I ever was before, particularly Bitcoin. On the one hand, just because all of my alt bags are down only versus Bitcoin, so obviously their percentage share in the portfolio is decreasing, but also the only thing I really feel confident buying throughout liquidation cascades like October 10th, or also during last week when we revisited the lows, is Bitcoin, a little bit of ETH, a little bit of Solana, and then maybe one or two DeFi coins. But all the other stuff where it's more of a reflexive nature, particularly meme coins, it's just so hard to have conviction in any of these assets right now. It might be a counter signal, but still, it just feels like a very weird phase to me. And yeah, it's hard to be bullish or bearish. Also, when listening to other podcasts that have close ties to liquid funds, etc., it seems like never before in this cycle there has been such a dispersion in market outlooks. There are liquid funds who are levered up post 1010 because they tried to buy the dip and they also bought more last week. There are people who sold everything. There are people who are net short. There are people who are still betting on a revival of meme coins. There are other who are like max long only on the revenue meta, like Hyperliquid and some of the DeFi coins. Some are consolidating more and more around BTC. So yeah, I think regardless where the market is going to go, a very select number of participants are going to make the most amount of money. And I think the dispersion in returns and like the decline of the we're all going to make it narrative is greater than ever before. And I don't think that in the mid to long run, this is going to motivate more people to enter the industry with the hope of making it overnight or like hitting a 10x, hitting a 100x, because the likelihood of achieving that is just much lower today than it was last cycle. But yeah, I don't know how you're looking at it.
I think I agree. There's always this. So honestly, if I were to, I think the correct discussion about this topic needs to be who's the least wrong. Like we're all gonna be so fucking wrong, but who is the least wrong? And if there's one thing I can say from my own journey and predictions, it's that whatever happened, you have some sense of it happening, but you only realize it happened when it's too late. When, like, for example, when people say in the bear market you go down 90%, right? I mean, the first 80% already happens in like a month. You know what I mean? So, and then it's like, cool. Yes, it's gonna probably go down another 70% from here, which brings me down to 90%. But it's not like there's a lot of. It's basically like now. Like now, it's like okay, like there could be another leg out, and if I'm not exposed, I'm gonna be very sad. But it could also be that we're basically in the process of going down and it's down only from here. And by the time we all acknowledge that, okay, we're in the full bear market, I didn't act. It's been too late. So in that sense, I really like don't know. That's my honest answer. And I just know that holding has been the best strategy for me. My main conviction plays didn't really change. And even though I got some exposure to memes last year, I still hold to most of them. I still hold on to most of them because I think I mainly invested into the communities and the people behind them. And all of these projects are still grinding. So why do I sell now at minus 80% to save a potential minus 90%? I don't know. That's not really a game I'm playing. But again, I'm not good at playing this at preserving capital. Also, like I don't want to have too many transactions in terms of like trading, and so I want my taxes and everything to be very simple, which is essentially like I've done nothing other than holding. So all in all, I would still give it like a 5% chance that we see a parabola. And when I say parabola, I'm not talking about an altcoin cycle. I'm talking about like Zcash going to 5K, Monero going to 5K, ETH going to 6K, maybe like some selected coins going to 10x from here. That's it. Like I'm not talking about anything else.
Last thing you hear before your house coin tax loss harvesting is greater than the value of your actual house. But yeah, one thing you mentioned there, which I think that was pretty interesting, is that yes, in theory, it makes sense that after Bitcoin Xing or Xing from its lows, it makes sense for most participants to take chips off of a table. But nobody is willing to do that because the cycle can't be over for I have not become rich yet. And I think that is a thinking that is very prevalent in like 95% of market participants right now, because there is at least some expectation to take a little bit of money out of this. I think most of them have found their peace that they cannot repeat the successes and the multiples of last cycle, but to settle for a break even and like underperforming BTC significantly. I would say that even the majority of market participants is net down since the cycle lows. I mean, if you didn't buy BTC at the lows, if you didn't buy Solana at the lows, if you didn't buy ETH when it was cascading down, I think during the April crash, you probably have not done well. Everybody exposed to DeFi stuff got torn apart over the last couple of months. Many of these things have even peaked last year. If you were exposed to the Murat coins, which were the larger cap memes, you are down pretty bad this year. The entire AI agents narrative is down bad. Like all the things you tried to get excited about, everything you tried to believe in, like all the believe in something people, they're so down bad. Everybody who won believed in nothing. It's the cynics cycle.
It depends. So most people are too late to most cycles, but Murat called SPX at 15 million. That day it went up to what, 20 million? So if anyone had the chance, if they believed in this, if they believed in something, and they believed in that and put in like whatever, 2K, that's still up X or something. Like not calling that it went to 2 billion, it's still at what, 800 million? I don't actually follow the price, but I feel like SPX is still very high. The other Murat coins, most of them, I would say, are still doing fine. Like Popcat is down quite a bit, but I think even Giga and Mini and some of the others he called, they're up from the price that he called them. But I understand that people don't ape in the second he calls them, because most people were like, what is this thing? Who is this guy, first of all? Murat Mahmudov, some Azerbaijani dude who speaks a token about memes. It's like, sure, I'm gonna full port into whatever he says. Little do they know that he's been around for over 10 years and had a fund, which he blew up infamously, but I think that's perfectly fine. Like, as in, you have to have a couple failures in order to succeed. Yeah, but and then there were people who believed in this before he called them, and then he was in the coins that he called, and those people had overnight 10x's. So long story short, I think only people who obviously bought the top and top blasted are down. If you've been a believer, if you've believed in this prior to the hype, you're not down, you're up. Which is why you should find something to believe in the upcoming bear market and build a position, such that when, whatever you believe comes true, you're up. And if it doesn't, you just have to own it, that you've been wrong, and move on. It's as simple as that. And the biggest issue here is that most people don't have infinite money supply, so they can't just like stray into 5 things to believe in, which is why it's more important to make concentrated bets, in my opinion. But honestly, like right now, if you're not already positioned, I don't know, it's a very weird situation to position yourself in. Like I'd feel much more comfortable just like avoiding everything until we hit the confirmed bear market, where things go down for multiple months, consolidate, and I would start to build a position there. That's my general take. But again, myself, I don't even do much.
I think you're over-indexing a bit how many people got exposed to meme coins right after Murat started talking about them. I think the popularization of the meme coin thesis, it started with the token 2049 video of Murat going viral, and then people slowly tying together, okay, meme coins are actually an interesting instrument to get exposure to the whole trend of financial absurdism, financial nihilism, etc., which are completely valid trends. But if I'm looking at my trading view, and like for some reason I can't share this separate screen, but for example, Giga in September or October 2024, it was sitting at around like 4 cents. Now it's down to 0.5 cents. So you're down bad on that. SPX, you could still be up. That's the only one that has held up reasonably well. Popcat is below the summer 2024 mean price. Also, Mog has pretty much completely reverted the rise. Same for stuff like Lock-in or the entire Retardio thing, Mini, the Bitcoin meme, like the Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic, whatever, 10 Eno thing. A bunch of these things are just pretty dead. Also, the recent runners, recent in terms of being this year, Housecoin has retraced the entire chart. Chill House is like occasionally having some coordinated pumps, but pretty dead. I mean, Unstable Coin has also retraced the majority of its run up. So I think there's not only the charts themselves looking pretty bad, but it's also like, what's your thesis if you want to get exposure to these things of who the marginal buyer is going to be? Like, if people are talking about crypto at all right now, they're talking about the TradFi and fintech integrations of the blockchain
Yeah.
technology and of stablecoins, but nobody is talking about meme coins.
So it comes back to financial nihilism, but I want to add some more color. So I think most of these coins that you mentioned, I agree, they're probably down, but especially like Giga. Giga, you mentioned that what, 10, 15 million? So they're still up 5x or 4x or something. But anyways, so my take is essentially the following. If you've been in the space for long enough, you come to the conclusion that a lot of the coins for the technologies we're building are proper meme. They're not needed. They're mainly like to gather people behind an idea, and the whole purpose is for price to go up, and that's it. If you are just honest and acknowledge that, I mean, some coins obviously do make sense and they need to exist, but most don't. And if you just acknowledge that, then you can like cut all the tech right away. Because if the tech works, you don't need the token. You can just like take a fee and have a profitable business model. The reason you introduce a coin is usually additional capital access or some like. Please, like, let's not start with governance memes or anything like that. I think that was the 2021 post DeFi era where everyone was hyped on governance, but I don't buy it. Look at Zcash. Like, yes, there's some privacy tech, but surprise, surprise, if you actually use shielded transactions, which it's less than 10% of the network, exchanges will block you. So the whole idea of, oh, I'm going to buy Zcash because of privacy, but then I can't use it. Like, if you really care about privacy, there's other things you would use alongside with Zcash. So this whole idea was like, oh, I'm a privacy maxi now. I'm going to buy Zcash and chill it. It's just a meme. The underlying tech is something, but the meme is much bigger. And what is the meme? The meme is a narrative. The meme is privacy. The meme is censorship resistance, and so on and so forth. And for some, it's Zcash. For others, it's Monero. Obviously, people know I'm in the Monero camp. But long story short, I just remember that when I first came across Bitcoin, the closest thing I could think of was that it's a good meme. So it's like internet money now, cool. So I think memes will never die. I think what made memes very problematic is professional extraction on Solana with professional tools, with professional, like highly sophisticated, again, tools and actors who extract and farm. And just to put this in perspective, I mean, we've done some research for a project we've worked on. 98 to 99% is purely extractive volume. So how often can you wreck someone, right? And this is kind of part of the problem. I'm pretty sure, and it's a reality that this exists, but if this would not be the case, I think the what you call tranches or like the meme coins would do much, much better. But unfortunately, this exists, and I think this is the biggest problem right now. I still think, like, even if you look at the past cycles with Shiba Inu and Akira, like all these like dog coins, right? They outperform most things. So I would accept the fact that some amount of old memes are dead, but I would 100% also at the same time bet on some new meme is gonna outperform everything. It's just like you don't know which one yet, and you don't know if you will be able to catch it on the way up. But yeah, memes will never die, in my opinion.
For the next 5 years, would you rather hold just BTC or a basket of your current meme coin stack?
Just BTC.
Yeah, no, I think that's like pretty telling. Everybody at the end of the day treats meme coins by their strict definition just as a quick flip, and like nobody believes in anything. I think if you believe in something, you got completely torn apart this cycle. Funnily enough, I saw, I think Ben Cohen video this morning where he has these into the cryptoverse dashboard indicators, and there's one for social metrics. And if you look at the social metrics relative to the BTC price, the price to social excitement ratio right now is literally as bad as the FTX phase of the cycle, end of 2022, and the 2018 bear market. So just looking at this and like all the macro catalysts, everything that is going on in the altcoin trenches, there is a possibility of altcoins either completely fading into irrelevance or just BTC outperforming alts and altcoins kind of staying where they are right now. And there's also I think it's the total free divided by BTC chart. So it basically excludes the market cap of BTC and ETH and is looking at all the other altcoins. I think there's also one where the top 10 altcoins are excluded by market cap. And this thing has been down only ever since the cycle low of 2022. Like BTC has consistently outperformed alts. And we are not yet even at the lows of I think it was the 2019 low. So if you put a lot of belief into that chart, the theory of a very extended cycle going into 2026 not even that off. And if you then also think, okay, for people to pivot away from speculating on AI, prediction markets, etc., and moving down crypto as kind of the last leg up before the whole house of cards is collapsing. I think people will soon start to make up theses why we are in an extended cycle, yada yada, and it's just everybody delaying their time frame that they had for this year. Where in the spring, I still remember everybody talking about Q3 being the top, and yeah, kind of maybe some alts in Q4, and then this whole euphoria collapsing. So I think that for 2 years now, we have just continuously postponed the expected alt season, and it just feels very fake. Essentially, everybody's just hoping for one last gasp, one last dance to just quit it for good. And I think as long as this is the mindset, without any big new influx of users, it is super difficult for this to actually happen and to actually see this 2 weeks of exuberance.
I completely agree with that. Really, there's nothing to add. I think like the current administration in the States has also contributed to the at least unpredictability of the markets. So yeah, I very much agree. And I think honestly, there's like, of course, there's always the 1% who outperform the rest and who know what they're doing. But other than that, like, I don't really see a point in trying to playing the markets and moving things too much. Like, to your question, just for Bitcoin, I think the main thesis is still it's going to go to a million, which is a clean 10x. Yeah, I agree. On the AI thing, I don't see that dystopian. I feel like, especially being a builder and using it every day and like building with it, it will, in this case, it will happen slower than people think. It's not like overnight all our jobs are taken. It will take another 20 years for that scenario to materialize in my mind. So I think there's still like a lot of years arbitrage, just like leveraging AI and building something meaningful with it. Yeah, regulation is kind of an unknown, especially in Europe. Like you may want to start building something and then the fuck gets regulated out of it. But other than that, I think I don't see it as dystopian. No P-doom in my world. But I do agree with the statement that people are seeing crypto as a potential escape from that treadmill. Like, what else do you want to do?
Well, you can speculate on tech stocks, you can speculate on AI, you can gamble on prediction markets or on betting markets. And over the past years, more and more people have been flocking over to that instead of crypto. I think just yesterday in the DeFi dojo, where I'm pretty active, I had a pretty lengthy discussion with one of the guys on whether, like, my basic claim is always, and it's been since the beginning of the year, like the economy is not real, in the sense, not that I'm doubting any of the economic metrics or any of the numbers being published, but on a meta level, the kind of underlying sustainability of the demand and the utility that we ascribe to most companies, their products, their services, and most of the associated jobs with that, it is completely overextended. Like we could probably cut away 20% of the entire economy and all of jobs overnight, and society would just be fine in terms of stuff that needs to be supplied and needs to be produced in order for society to function. Of course, this is now completely ignoring the impact it would have on like welfare systems, retirement systems, etc. But like if 20% of jobs and companies disappeared overnight, everything would be fine. Like most of the economy is self-imposed baggage. And yeah, we can dive deeper into that another time. But yeah, I'll probably have to kind of finish this argument a little better and improve the essay. But I think it's a pretty important theme for our times.
Yep. Sounds good. Looking forward to it, honestly. Amazing. I have to drop now. We're at the hour. Solid kind of like overview of everything. For next time, would be cool to dive deeper into prediction markets, actually. You mentioned it a couple times. I think we should try to do a deep dive.
Sounds good. It was great catching up.